Hello learners, welcome to our live session. Today we are going to discuss chapter number 21, which is stress and your health. So basically we are going to understand that what is stress. We are also going to understand that what are the various types of reactions to different types of stress. We will identify and name the various sources of stress, and we will also explain the effect of stress on our health. So stress means the pressure and an uneasy experience. The cause of stress may be self or other individuals around us, and also our environment. The stress caused by self. Suppose you have not studied till the last date of your examination and suddenly you try to study everything on the previous day of your exam. You are not able to learn, and also you are not confident whether you have covered each topic or not. The tension mounts, and what is this situation? You have put yourself in some sort of a stress, which is stress due to an exam. The stress need not necessarily always be negative. For instance, if you are not anxious before any test or examination, you will not prepare for it seriously and your performance and thus may not be as good. A little bit of stress helps us to motivate and perform well, and thus the stress has both the positive as well as the negative dimensions, and the positive aspect of stress is termed as eustress, which basically means the stress producing the positive results. The negative dimension is called distress. The stresses caused by the environment. So suppose your crop is ripe and it is ready for the harvest, and suddenly the continuous rain makes you helpless and worried about your crops. Your stress is due to the nature or environment, and thus the pollution of air and water or crowding is also an example of environmental stress. So, stress are caused by other persons also. For example, in every way you are due for promotion, but the management of your organization fails to promote you, and here your stress is due to the other people, specifically like in your organization, because you were stressed about your career and the promotion that you were deserved, like you feel that you deserve that. As discussed before also, the stress need not necessarily always be considered negative. The positive aspect of the stress, which is termed as eustress, produces the positive result, and the badminton player, for example, practices for hours together before a match, and thus practice is stressful but it produces the good result. The famous scientist who invented the bulb, Thomas Alva Edison, failed more than 1000 times and finally he succeeded, and he was experiencing eustress. So, the negative dimension of stress or distress often causes an unpleasantness and leads to the poor performance. For example, a Radha, who is a bright girl who always used to get a good marks, her marks came down drastically due to her father, who comes home drunk and beats her mother. So she is basically worried, tensed, and cannot concentrate on her studies, which resulted in getting the low marks in the examination, and thus Radha became the victim of distress. The reactions to the stress can be classified into the following categories. For example, the physiological stress, the affective stress, cognitive and behavioral stress. The physiological reaction or a physiological stress refers to the physical function of the human body which gets affected under the stress and do not work in their normal routine. And thus, the reaction which commonly occur in an individual in relation to this type of stress are the rapid pounding of heart and pulses, the muscles become tense, there is a dryness of the throat or mouth, there is a feeling of sickness in the stomach, which is equally referred to as the butterfly in the stomach, and also trembling. So generally it is a very vulnerable and weak body system that gets affected by the stress first. The resulting symptoms are therefore called the psychosomatic reactions. For instance, if the respiratory system is weaker and stress is affecting it, and that may lead to the asthma. So similarly, if the digestive system is vulnerable, it becomes the target for the attack of stress. It usually results in ulcers. Thus, almost all the systems can very well reflect the impact of stress by coming out with various symptoms like blood pressure, wheezing, stomachache, headache, pain of the joints, stuttering, etc. Now, there is some effective reactions also. These reactions are emotional responses. The people suffering from stress get affected very quickly and they manifest symptoms of anxiety, depression, anger, irritability, and also having poor control over the emotions. Now moving on to the cognitive reactions. So this category basically of reaction includes the following: the poor concentration, the inability to learn anything new with the same speed and efficiency, forgetting, the inability to take the proper decision, that too in time, confusion, gate crashing of ideas, and also the negative or unhealthy thoughts. The physiological, affective, and cognitive reactions are convert in nature. In other words, they take place within the individual, but the behavioral reactions are overt, which means that they take place outwardly. They include the behaviors like crying, talking, incoherently, irrelevantly speech, the hitting, bashing or banging, etc. The stressors are the events and situations such as the bus rides or interviews to which people must react. So let us see some of the common stressors that people experience. These stressors are perceived as mild and motivating for some and moderately or severely stressful for others. They affect the well-being of people. The common stressors include the following, such as the boredom, loneliness, frustration, conflicts. So there are certain points that we need to discuss, is that the pressure which causes stress in our life due to these points. For example, the pressure to meet the deadlines, competition, increased responsibility, exertion due to travel or any physical or mental work, divorce, separation and death of the loved ones, the trouble in the interpersonal relationships such as parents, in-laws, friends, boss, servants, etc. The loss of the one's self-prestige, image or status, the losses in the one's profession or studies or business, etc. The lack of freedom and privacy, the sexual difficulties and guilt feelings, the changes in the financial status, the change in the residence as well as the payment of loans. Now, the stress reactions are basically the physical, psychological and behavioral responses such as nausea, nervousness and fatigue which people display in the face of stressors. Mediating factors such as the circumstances in which the stressors take place and each person's characteristics makes people more or less sensitive to the stressors. Every one of us experiences stress in some or the other way at home or at workplace, but stress tolerance varies across individuals. We can always reduce the stress, which can act as a promoter or self-understanding. We don't actually know what we can do unless we have to do it. Now, for example, each time we clear a subject in exam, we gain self-confidence that we can also pass through this kind of situation. Sometimes the experience of disappointments and failures become blessing in disguise because we realize that we were pursuing the wrong goals or the task came to us so suddenly that we were not ready for it. The sources of stress can be classified into 4 categories, which are as follows: the family, occupational, educational, personal, as well as environmental. The family. If you are experiencing stress because one of your family member is seriously ill, then the source of your stress is family. The other familiar stress include the financial difficulty, the quarrel between the spouses, etc. Occupational or educational stress. For a student, stress may be the examination, staying in a hostel, etc. A teacher who is not teaching well may add to the stress. Poor pay, over-demanding boss, uncooperative co-worker, and also the subordinates. The poor working conditions are some of the occupational stressors experienced by the people. The personal stress are many. A personal stress is often caused by the feelings of inadequacy, inferiority, and insecurity. My memory is poor, I am dark, I am fat, I am not good looking, I cannot speak English well, I am not intelligent, I am not talented, I am poor, I have poor health, or I am unemployed or underemployed are some of the thoughts and attitudes making one feel inadequate and insecure and suffer from stress. So, the environmental stress. The unexpected natural calamities such as the fire, famine, earthquake, tsunami, floods, etc. are the environmental stressors. Crowd, poor sanitation, and pollution are also the sources of environmental stress. The indications are there that 75% of the human diseases are caused by the stress experienced by the people. During the stressful period, the anxiety and nervousness are quite common symptoms, and when these become intense, the phobia may develop. A phobia refers to the irrational fear over an object, person, or an animal or a situation. The person feels unduly anxious when he or she comes across a phobic situation and hence always tries to avoid them. The anxiety refers to a vague, unpleasant feeling of impending threat and danger. A person with severe anxiety will always be worried, unclear, confused, and indecisive. Sometimes, even the excessive anxiety may lead to the speech problems like stuttering and stammering. The urinary problems like bedwetting are also the commonly seen among children. Let's take a small break over here and we can continue from this after break. Thank you.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
अपना जीवन स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
धन साधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो,
संसाधन समय की सीमा से विद्यालय जो मुक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वे विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
कभी पढ़े हम कहीं पढ़े, वह विषय की लोच से युक्त हो।
मित्रों हम उठे और जागे,
मंजिल आने की ध्वनि सुने हम। अपना जीवन स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने, राहों को आलोकित करने।
राष्ट्रीय मुक्त विद्यालय का है द्वार खुला सबकी खातिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर।
शिक्षा परीक्षा का अवसर एक बार ही क्यों मिलता फिर। दुनिया में इसके केंद्र बहुत,
कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने हम। अपना जीवन स्वयं बने हम, अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने। कोई मन चाहा केंद्र चुने
Hello learners, welcome back after the small break. So we were discussing about the different type of stresses. The stress reactions are the physical, psychological and behavioral responses which include the nausea, nervousness and fatigue which people display in the face of stressors. The mediating factors such as the circumstances in which the stressors take place and each person's characteristics makes people more or less sensitive towards the stressors. Every one of us experiences stress in some or the other way at home or at the workplace, but the stress tolerance varies across the individuals. We can always reduce the stress. The stress can act as a promoter of self-understanding. We don't actually know what we can do unless we have to do it. For example, each time when we clear a subject in exam, we gain the self-confidence that we can also pass through this kind of situation. Sometimes the experience of disappointments and failures become blessings and in disguise because we realize that we were pursuing the wrong goals or the task that came to us so suddenly that we were not ready for it. The sources of stress can be classified into the 4 categories which are as follows. The family, occupational, educational, personal and environmental. The family stress. If you are experiencing stress because one of your family member is seriously ill, then the source of your stress is family. The other familial stress include the financial difficulty, quarrel between the husband and wife, etc. The personal stress are many. A personal stress is often caused by the feelings of inadequacy, inferiority and insecurity. My memory is poor, I'm not talented, etc. are some of the basic thoughts that a person gets and makes one feel inadequate and insecure and suffer from stresses. The environmental stress. The unexpected natural calamities such as the fire, famine, earthquake, tsunami, floods, etc. are the environmental stress. Crowd, poor sanitation and pollutions are also the sources of environmental stress. If you have heard the recent news, there have been an earthquake that have been taken place with 7.8 Richter scale in Turkey and Syria. This is the latest news by which the people, the citizens of these areas have been in a major stress. So this was an example of environmental stress. The indications are there that 75% of the human diseases are caused by the stress experienced by the people. During any stressful situation, stressful period, the anxiety and nervousness are quite common symptoms. When these become intense, the phobia may develop. A phobia refers to the irrational fear over an object, person, or an animal or situations. The person feels unduly anxious when he or she comes across a phobic situation and hence always tries to avoid them. The anxiety basically refers to a very vague, unpleasant feeling of impending threat and danger. A person with severe anxiety will always be worried, unclear, confused and indecisive, and sometimes the excessive anxiety may also lead to the speech problems like stuttering and stammering. Urinary problems like bedwetting are commonly seen among the children due to the fear or anxiety. In the course of our everyday life, every one of us is exposed to various germs and viruses, but we do not fall ill. And this is because we have got a protective mechanism inside our body, which is called the immune system. But stress can weaken this immune system and this can make us the victim of many diseases. If the stress is for a shorter period of time, there is not much damage. But if the stress prolongs, it results in the serious illnesses such as cancer, heart disease, headache, asthma, and peptic ulcer. It is also found that the individuals under the stress are more likely to catch cold than the individuals who are not under the stress. This is attributed to the fact that the intense stress reduces the body's immune system and thus making the person easily vulnerable to the infections. It is an accepted fact that certain cardiac problems like hypertension and heart attacks are caused due to the emotional strain the person undergoes. Such emotional stress caused may be due to the frustration, intense anger, fear, depression, or shock. Eating disorders can also be caused due to the preoccupation with stressful situations. Sleep disorders can also occur due to stress. Such persons have difficulty in going to sleep or experience disturbed sleep or not getting sleep at all. A person who is said to frequently experience the intense emotions such as anger, jealousy, hatred, fear, panic, often complain about ulcers. The intense fear or guilt can also lead some of the people even to the sexual problems as well. The most common stress-related health problem is cold and headache. The scientists say that there is no specific medicine for common cold and tension headache. They occur when an individual undergoes a very stressful situation, and thus they may vanish under the pleasant or happy situations. The pills for killing the pain and cold give only the temporary relief, and hence it is very necessary to know the root cause of stress for the permanent solution for these health problems. For example, a student might get headache whenever he is asked to give a test or an exam. The psychosomatic diseases like peptic ulcers, asthma, essential hypertension are also caused by stresses. You would have known that many died due to heart attack at a very young age, and those were the victims of stress. The combination of repetitive stress and the weakness of particular system leads to these psychosomatic diseases. For example, a person gets ulcer when under stress his stomach, the digestive system becomes weak. And these people also do not express their emotions outwardly. So, for example, if a person gets angry, he must show it out in an appropriate way, but if he keeps within himself repeatedly, he is likely to get the ulcer. He should be asked to learn the proper means and ways of expressing the emotions outwardly for maintaining a good health. The above includes some of the commonly reported stress-related problems that we have discussed, and thus they are experienced by the individuals from mild or to moderate levels. A less often occurring severe disorder is known as the post-traumatic stress disorder. The symptoms may include anxiety, apprehension, chronic tension, sleep disorders like insomnia or sleepless nights, nightmares, withdrawal behavior, etc. The disorder also occurs when a person experiences the severe stress after a traumatic life-threatening experience like accidents, being victimized either physically or mentally as in rape or sexual harassment, the death of the near or dear ones, etc. The stress relief. In many severe cases of experience of intense stress, an individual must consult the psychologist for an immediate help or to be institutionalized for a certain period of time. The mild to moderate stress can be easily relieved through the different ways such as the regular physical exercises, relaxation, meditation, thinking positively, seeking the social activities which are relaxing and pleasurable, and also following the certain management techniques like the time management, stress reduction programs, etc. Through this, we can definitely help ourselves as well as the people around us to deal with the stress. But if the stress is for a shorter period of time and there is not much damage, and if the stress prolongs, it results into a serious illness. It could lead to the cancer, heart diseases, headache, and different ulcers, and thus it is found that the individual under any sort of a stress are more likely to catch common cold also than the individuals who are not under the stress, and this is an attribute to the fact that the intense stress reduces the body's immune system, and thus lots of stress, and if the stress is very prolonged and if it has become issue for your daily activities, the person can become easily vulnerable to the infection. If stress is not being treated properly and it goes for a very long period of time, it can convert into depression or dysthymic disorder. It is also an accepted fact that the certain cardiac problems like the hypertension, angina and heart attacks are caused due to the emotional strain the person undergoes. Such emotional stress caused may be due to the frustration, intense anger, fear, depression or shock. The eating disorder can also be caused due to the preoccupation with stressful situations. Sleep disorders can also occur due to stress. Such persons have difficulty in going to sleep or experiencing the disturbed sleep or not getting sleep at all. A person who is said to frequently experience the intense emotions such as anger, jealousy, hatred, fear, panic, often complains about the ulcers. The intense fear or guilt can also lead to some of the other problems also. The most common issue or stress related to the health problems are the cold and headache, and thus an individual undergoes these stressful experiences cold and headache, and thus it vanishes by itself when the person is in the pleasant or happy situation. The pills for killing the pain and cold give only the temporary relief, and hence it is very important and necessary to know that the root cause of the stress or the permanent solution for these health problems. For example, a student might get headache whenever he or she is asked to give a test or an exam. The psychosomatic diseases like the peptic ulcer, asthma, essential hypertension, high BP are also caused by these stresses, and thus it would be important that you would have to know that many die due to the heart attack at a very young age, and those were the victims of stress. The combination of repeated stress and the weakness of the particular system leads to the psychosomatic diseases. For example, a person gets ulcers when under stress his stomach becomes weak, and thus the people also do not express their emotions outwardly, which causes the stress and depression again. It's very important to understand that if a person gets angry, he must show it on an appropriate way and take it out. And if the person is keeping that stress or anger repeatedly within himself, it's very likely that the person, he or she, may get the ulcer. He should be asked to learn the proper means and ways of expressing the emotions outwardly for maintaining a good and healthy life. The above paragraph included some of the commonly reported stress-related problems, and thus the people experience the stress experienced by the individuals from different levels like mild, moderate or severe. And thus a less often occurring severe disorder known as the PTSD, which is also known as the post-traumatic stress disorder, includes the symptoms such as anxiety, apprehension, chronic tension, sleep disorders, insomnia, sleepless nights, nightmares, as well as the withdrawal behavior. If PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder is not being treated on time, it may lead to suicidal tendencies also, it may lead to depression, it may lead to the negative thoughts and thus self-doubt as well. This disorder occurs when a person experiences the severe stress after a very traumatic, life-threatening experience like accident, being victimized either physically and mentally in the form of any harassment, death of near or dear ones, etc. The stress relief. In many severe cases of experience of the intense stress, an individual must consult the psychologist or psychiatrist for the immediate help that need to be provided by the institutions for a certain period of time. Through the help of the psychiatrist, you can get the proper medication for the stress or depression that the person might be going through. And through the help of a clinical psychologist, through the therapy sessions, you can get the understanding and the way to proceed further in your life. The mild to moderate stress can also be easily relieved through the different ways, such as the regular physical exercises, relaxation, meditation, thinking positive, seeking the social activities which are relaxing and pleasurable, or following these certain management techniques like reducing the reduction of the programs, etc. The medications such as the stress drugs must be used only in the severe cases and under the medical supervision of the psychiatrist. Thus, with this, we have completed this chapter, and I hope you have understood this chapter. Once you will read this by yourself, you will get the better understanding. Thank you.
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने,
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित करने, हम अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने,
अपना दीपक स्वयं बने, हम अपना रास्ता स्वयं चुने।
जीवन ये प्रकाशित करने राहों को आलोकित